Welcome back to True Vine Talks. It's me and Rachel here today. Of course, we have, taken a little break. We've been sort of overwhelmed, so much happening. And so we're back and we thought about some topics for our podcast. And, right now seems to be a good time to talk about finding meaning and purpose um, in your life and what to do with what we call in psychology is existential anxiety. And that is a little different type of anxiety than what I think the average person might have heard of.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, this is what people may know as like the midlife crisis type of anxiety.
Yes, very good.
But it doesn't have to happen midlife. It can happen anytime there's like a major change in your life, such
Oh,
as in the midst of a pandemic.
good point. Yeah. And that's where a lot of us are. We're just all trying to figure out what to do, what not to do, what's the purpose right now, how do I find meaning, how to make meaning of what's happening. And existential anxiety, like you said, you've likely lost someone or you've lost something very important to you, and you contemplate life and death. You're just wondering why you're here and what you're here for. Um,
Right.
and I like this because when I was in college, I really come in contact with what am I doing? What am I in college for? What are we doing? And I love learning, and that was fun. Um, but finding a purpose, and meaning behind what I'm doing, you know. And so that's something where you come in contact with it maybe in your 20s, and like you said, maybe in your 40s, you've lived this life and you're wondering, what am I doing? Is what I'm doing going to matter?
Exactly. How am I going to be remembered? What's my purpose? What's driving me? Why do I wake up in the morning?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So there are ways to kind of learn that. One therapy model that I was taught was ACT therapy, and I think you have familiarity with that too. Is that acceptance and commitment therapy model? My awesome supervisor, he taught me like the tombstone exercise.
Mm, I love that one.
Yes, and it's like it seemed a little in your face when he was teaching me this to help my clients, but having someone make their tombstone and the dash, what is that dash going to look like?
Yeah.
How do you want people to remember you?
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah. Your epitaph.
There you go.
What your legacy? What are you leaving behind?
Yeah. And I thought that was in your face, but it really makes you come in contact with what you truly care about and what matters to you. Is that,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. Are you living up to, what's important to you, your values and beliefs? Are you making that a part of your everyday life?
Yeah, definitely. Because if people are at your funeral, what do you want them to say about you?
Good
Oh,
things. I would say most people would want people to be saying good things.
they would. Yeah. And so that dash, that's your life. That's what people are going to say about you. Um, and some people may say, I want them to say I was a good mom or a good dad or a good sister or okay, so what does that mean?
Yeah. What does it look like?
Yeah. So there are ways to deal with existential anxiety. And I'm gonna go on to our next question because I think, have I defined that well enough, you think?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Life events that may cause this type of anxiety are
Yeah. So like we were saying, like any type of major life change. So a loss of a role, like any type of major loss, whether you've lost a part of your identity or a job or a role or a person who you're very close to and care about, um, or maybe gaining a role that you weren't fully prepared for, right? So becoming a parent when that's not something you were planning to do, it was a surprise or unintended. For some people, could be a traumatic event, right? Like you were saying, when you come close to death, right? Like a car accident or something traumatic. So lots of things. So anything that kind of jolts you, you weren't prepared for, and it has now kind of changed the trajectory of your life. You weren't ready for it.
I like that. Change the trajectory. Yes, I told you I was going to be a lawyer, right, Rachel? I told you that.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I was pre-law in college, and that was, I wanted to be powerful and rich and all this other nonsense. And so I came in contact with, when working at a firm, like, you have to lie. And, I felt like the spirit was saying, do you want to lie? You're going to have to lie. Not, I'm not saying every lawyer lies. I'm saying,
right.
in my case, I would have had to lie. And that's, it's like, do you want to spend the rest of your life helping people or hurting people? So it's helping people, hurting people. So that was, don't want to go and crush people, or like help them to live better lives. So that was an existential experiment for me, early on. So yeah, it can be any time in your life. And it created a lot of anxiety because I didn't want to go to be, learn counseling. That wasn't really what I was thinking. Yeah, but I loved talking to people. I love encouraging people. And it was what I was really good at doing. You don't know that.
Right.
You don't know that till you know, grow a little bit. So everyone has come in contact at some point in their life, like, what am I doing? Where am I going? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think I had mine in college too. I had always been an AB student through high school, and I was going to school for like laboratory. So there was like lots of chemistry involved, and I liked science, so I didn't think it was going to be a big deal until I got to like, no. I realized chemistry in college was very different from chemistry in high school. And I failed. It was my first thing I ever failed in my life, and it was devastating. And
You
I was like, what am I doing? I can't do this. So,
Yeah. You got an F in chemistry.
yes, it was terrible. It was heartbreaking.
You just told on yourself.
I did.
Yeah. And you were like, why am I doing chemistry?
Yeah, just what am I doing in general, right?
And it helped you to come in contact with what you're good at and what you're not.
Yeah, it did. I had to sit and think about, what classes have I taken that I really enjoyed and I was really good at and I learned a lot from. And those were the psychology, sociology classes. And so I went more in that direction, and here I am, and I'm so glad. I never thought I would be glad that I failed a class, but I don't think I would have enjoyed, what I intended to do originally, like you're saying about, being a lawyer.
Were you going to be a doctor, Rachel?
I wanted to be like a radiologist. Yeah.
And then you found yourself, like, your trajectory moved.
Yeah.
Was that difficult? Did you have anxiety with that? Like,
Yes, I did. Yeah. I think that's a lot to do with like external pressure too, which can totally, you know, affect you when you're having an existential crisis, because you have a lot of people in your life that you care about and respect their opinions pushing you to do, make up your mind or do one thing or another, it gets complicated. You really have to do a lot of self-reflection, figure out what's good for me right now.
That's a good point. You're right. External pressure does kind of take you into an angst feeling like, oh my gosh, I want to get it right for the people that love me. They think I should be doing A, B, C, D, but it doesn't feel right for me.
Right.
So that's a good point. Yeah. So cool. I'm going on to our next question. Oh, yes. So one particular character in the Bible that I really just admire and appreciate, who battled depression and anxiety, I think he had anxiety too, was King Solomon. And if you read the book of Ecclesiastes, he's constantly, and I'll just read this to you, to the audience too. I have seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind.
Wow. Meaningless, a chasing after the wind.
Yes. Isn't that, he was dealing and grappling with, what is the point? Why am I here? Right? And he would wrestle with that existential anxiety and even question the afterlife. Yeah, so what's the point? I built all these gardens and have all these houses, have all this wealth. It's all meaningless because I'm going to leave it to the next person. Who knows if he'll squander it? So it makes you come in contact with, why am I here?
Yeah. Proof that material possessions do not equal happiness.
Good point, Rachel. He was the richest man in the world.
Yeah.
He had everything. And you think of that, you've got all this stuff and you're just sitting there, what's the point? Yeah. And some listeners might be having some of this existential angst right now, like, what are we doing? Why are we here? Why are we having to quarantine? Why do we have to social distance? What's the point? What are we doing? Just all this external things happening can create some inner anxiety for people. And physically, that looks like stomach aches, tightness, headaches, and it's like, oh man, sleeplessness.
Yeah. Increased heart rate, difficulty breathing.
Yeah. And so
rumination, right? What we're talking about, why am I here? What's the point? That's all a sign of rumination. You're really just you're thinking about everything, trying to tie it together.
Yeah. And you don't like to leave Solomon there because everybody leaves him at that depressed state. That people read his stuff and just leave him in that depressed state, in that anxious state. But towards the end of the book, he says it is best to just honor God in your youth and to give reverence to God and be happy for what he's given you, more or less.
Yeah. So he learned the importance of practicing gratitude.
Yeah. Nobody gets to the end of it. They always stay in this depressed state. I'm like, yeah, but he gets to the point, and you find purpose and meaning through your creator, is what he's saying here. If some people may have God be whatever their God is, this is from the Bible, but some people may have other beliefs, and that's fine, how they find meaning in their beliefs. But I think it's important that you find meaning in what you're doing and purpose. So that's a biblical account of that. And we also have a secular account, don't we? We have oh yes, Yes, number 6, Mr. Frankel, Viktor Frankel.
Yeah, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. He was the author of that book, and he was a psychologist or psychiatrist, one or the other, who
Yep.
survived the Holocaust. He survived living in Nazi Germany, lost everything, his family, his livelihood. And in his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he talks about how our will to live is dependent on the meaning and purpose that we find in life. And he found meaning and purpose through his work. So while he was, going through these horrible, traumatic life experiences, he was working on his book and logotherapy, the model therapy that he developed. And that's what kept him going.
He wanted to share what he learned in his pain and suffering.
Mm.
And we do a lot of avoidance of pain and suffering.
Yeah, that's very true. But Viktor Frankl would say that pain and suffering is a natural human experience, and that there's no way that we can ever avoid that, right? Between birth and death, we're all going to experience it. And what's going to get us through that is the meaning that we create from it.
Definitely. Yeah. And, going through, things, some people have difficult times where they have illnesses and, I've had lots of people who've had sicknesses say, had I not gotten sick, I wouldn't have been able to talk to this person, or I wouldn't have been able to reach this person, you know. So
Yeah.
sometimes those tougher times, we I don't know, we just there's a growth that happens there.
Mm-hmm. I think experiencing pain, heartache, whatever, can often lead people to being much more empathetic and compassionate to others. People tell me, like I pick up on how other people are feeling much more now than before this happened to me. It's made my heart so much bigger.
Oh yeah, because once you've had some experiences, and can I just share something like, yeah, so when I was this naive little college kid, and I worked at this, department store. There was a lady there that was pregnant, and I felt like they were always complaining about symptoms and, being tired and all these things. I'm like, why are they always complaining? And then, a couple years later, I got pregnant with our son, and I was like, wow, this is painful. This is hurtful. And I just had this, what you were just saying, this overarching feeling of empathy for her that I didn't have prior to getting pregnant. I did not know it was going to be that hard. I had no idea. I watched my mom be pregnant, but I did not know that it was that painful and tiring.
Mm.
I had a new deep sense of empathy, and it was a very painful and very traumatic pregnancy I had. And I really learned to have compassion for pregnant women after that. So it was painful.
Wow. Thanks for sharing your personal experience.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. Sometimes those are helpful for people to hear.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't live in bubbles. We don't have like, perfect lives just because we're counselors.
Oh, yes. Thank you for saying that. No, no, people probably think we're non judgmental all the time in our everyday life experiences. That's not true. As a counselor, we still have the human experience of feeling, coveting someone or having some judgment show up for someone. And, we have to really stay in tune to our own stuff coming up like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're not perfect.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody thinks that.
So like you were saying, like what we experience and encounter can impact how and help us find meaning and relate to others.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the product, a beautiful child who loves you, wow, that's powerful. So the suffering brought the good thing, the good, not thing, I'm not calling myself thing. No. My beautiful baby boy, all that pain, his smile was worth it, but I had to go through the pain, you know? And I think we avoid pain. I think what you're saying about Viktor Frankl, a lot of people died in those camps because they lost hope.
Yeah.
He maintained a hope that he could help others when he got out. He had a purpose, you know, and a goal in mind.
Mm-hmm.
That's important for people that have existential anxiety, you know. Develop some goals and life goals and future goals. So,
Yeah. What makes you feel useful, helpful, intentional? It could be, it doesn't, I think a lot of times people think that, my job or whatever my duty is, be it, a parent or certain career, that has to be my motivation. It could be just, volunteering. It could be a hobby. If making candles gives you purpose, like that doesn't have to be your job. It can be something that you do of an evening when you get home.
absolutely. You're right. And even having a pet to care for, a
Yeah.
dog from the shelter, or man, an animal helps you find meaning.
Yeah. I think a lot of people recently, because a lot of main attractions and activities have been shut down, they've been finding meaning and purpose through adventure. They've been going on hikes. They've been, doing exciting, adventurous things.
Oh, and the boat sales are up, right?
Are they? I bet so.
The jet skis, everybody's on the water because you
Yes.
can socially distance on the water and maintain in the sun, I guess, and maintain that healthy safeguard. So yeah, I mean,
Yes.
I'm seeing more people out. Like I said, in my neighborhood, I'm seeing people walk that I've never even seen before. That's incredible. They're finding ways to deal with the lockdowns. It's not really locked down anymore. It's more, I don't know, minimal openings. Would you say, Rachel?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Minimal openings.
Yeah. So, if you're, struggling with existential anxiety, I recommend as a counselor to do the tombstone exercise. Not if you're coming in contact with suicidal ideations. I wouldn't recommend it then. That's too heavy of an exercise. But if you're just having this, wanting to find meaning and purpose, I'd recommend that activity as a start.
Yes.
Yeah. And then another book, I don't know if I jumped along. We haven't done this in a while, so you have to be patient with us.
We're good.
Yeah,
Just a conversation.
Yeah, we're just having a conversation. Another book, because I'm such a nerd, was The Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. And a lot of people didn't like that book, and a lot of people liked it.
Oh, I didn't realize it had some controversy.
Yeah, some people just weren't into it, in the church world. His book was good in that it brought scripture to light. He sort of encouraged you to find your talents and your gifts, where some people are talented at speaking, some people are talented at teaching, some people are talented at generosity, some people are talented at encouraging. And he really told you kind of zone in on those talents, those gifts that kind of are more closer to you and your personality. And
I like that.
you like that?
Yeah.
thought it was pretty good. I liked it. And, he said, find purpose in using your talents and gifts. There are some people that are just so gifted at, creating art and
Yes.
crafts and jewelry. I'm like, I can't even draw stick people.
Oh.
I'm not an artiste, but I appreciate those that can be artistic and, and they can find meaning in being artistic. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like that. What makes you unique and different, and what you bring to the table. Everybody's got something else, something new that they bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. And he was talking about the church as a whole, the body, like some people are the head, some people are the toe, some people are the hands, the doers. There's just, everybody has a role and a position. We're put on earth, for something. And when you go out in nature, Rachel, don't you think, oh my gosh, wow, everything has a purpose in nature.
Yes.
The bees.
Yeah.
And like the trees. I mean, I know that sounds so probably silly. Maybe.
I don't think so.
Oh,
circle of life.
Yes. And you're like, wow, look at all this oxygen being given off by the trees. And, the flowers have a purpose, the nectar, everything is just sort of working together to make life happen. And I think every person has a beautiful, like, soul that is just to them, like genuine for them. Or what's the word I'm looking for, Rachel?
Unique.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Like your soul is warm and compassionate and kind and generous.
Thanks.
And so you're offering, to be present for others, whereas maybe someone else is not. They don't have those qualities. They have the quality of being a doer and getting stuff done and fixing things. Okay.
Yeah.
You're needed. They're needed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love it. It's so true.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And when you're at the ocean, what do you notice about the ocean? How that all kind of works together?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So you've got, just kind of like you were saying, like there's the water, right? And then the sun is, creating growth under the water. You got these, like, aquatic plant life that's then providing nutrients for all the creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So beautiful, so magnificent. So I think when you look at nature, you get more in contact with purpose and meaning. You think?
Yeah. I had never realized that I was doing that, but I totally am.
Yeah, you totally do.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow, so meaningful, and purposeful. So the listeners, there's some ways to find out what your purpose is, whether that's reading The Purpose Driven Life, maybe reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. There's some other good books out there that get you in contact with who you are and what you're doing. I can't think of any more right off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are two good ones. And I would recommend reading Ecclesiastes to people that, and go to the end, read the end. Read the last chapter. Maybe start with the last chapter and then go back and see how he's in an existential crisis. But then at the end, he comes in contact with, okay, so I'm here to serve this purpose and to serve God, and what that looks like. What that looks like to you as a soul,
Yeah. I think right now, at least I know I have experienced this, where before the pandemic, my role was very clear in different settings, right? I would leave my house, I would go to work, my role and purpose was very clear there. And then I would leave that role and I would come home, and my role and purpose, you know, as a wife in my marriage was very clear to me here. Now I'm a wife and a counselor at the same time in my house. And it was very confusing to figure out where are the boundaries, and you know, where does one stop and the other begin. So I've been having a little bit of a existential anxiety figuring that out. I've come a long way since it started in March.
Yes, thanks for sharing.
Yeah,
Yes, me too. Like I'm
right,
right
because
there.
you have an additional role of mom thrown in there too.
I mean, in between being counselor, do I, prepare a meal for these people I'm living with? I called out back.
Hey, we gotta do what you gotta do.
Y'all bring a meal. you know, and it's just like you want to be a wife and you want to be a mom and you want to be a counselor. You want to be great at all those roles and use your talents and gifts, but then you're like, ooh, where does this start and end, and where does this start and end?
Mm-hmm.
Make you come in contact with that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So to anyone else out there who's been struggling with the same thing, you are not alone. This has been rough.
Yeah, we're all suffering as a
Yeah.
whole, like worldwide, everybody's suffering.
Yeah. Juggling everything at once.
Yeah. And some more than others. I
Right.
recognize that some people are struggling more than others.
Definitely.
So in that pain, where do we find our meaning and our purpose and keep living that out from this point to the end of this thing? And that helps reduce the anxiety tremendously when you find out, what am I here for? What am I doing? What are the things that I'm doing towards my purpose here on earth? And it looks a lot like a vision board in a sense.
I was thinking that earlier, and then I forgot to mention it because we started talking about something else. So I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
And how does a vision board help a person with existential anxiety, Rachel?
I think a lot of times when experiencing existential anxiety, what am I doing? What's my purpose? We're trying to figure out, what is it I want? What do I want my future to look like? And a lot of times people don't know because they're being faced with something totally new. And so making a vision board and putting ideas of what you want your future to look like so that you can physically see it in front of you can be really helpful. Like, oh, okay, this is the direction that I'm wanting to go in.
Oh, yeah. And your talents and gifts, those are going to show up. When I work with clients and we do a vision board, if they enjoy or appreciate art's in there. They appreciate their family, they've got their family on there. How do I be a better daughter? What does that look like?
Yeah. Quotes that they like,
yes.
Right? That move them or create some positive emotion in some way.
Oh, yeah. Vision boards are amazing for existential anxiety. So what else do we want to share with our listeners about finding meaning and purpose? Is there more that we'd like to add, Miss Rachel?
I don't know. What motivates you to be a better person? Right? Every day we're trying to be better than we were yesterday.
So. Like that. What motivates you to be a better person? Yeah. What motivates you to get up?
I need money to pay my bills. Even if it's just that basic at first, we can build from that, right?
Yeah, just meeting our basic needs is,
Yeah.
feeding your kid or feeding your husband, yeah. So, well, we appreciate you guys, waiting on us to produce another podcast. And we've got some hold me tight stuff we're going to start next week, and with Dr. Sue Johnson's work. And that's the emotionally focused therapy work that Rachel and I enjoy and do so much with our clients. So we hope that, today's podcast was helpful to you, and we look forward to having you guys listen to us the next time. So thanks
Yeah.
for joining us.
All right. Bye.
Bye.